As a reporter, you cover many stories and you meet people from all walks of life. Well, now a former Madison reporter, an author, and now private businessman introduces us to several doctors he's met across the state, and he shares their experiences. Joining us today to talk about his book, White Coat Wisdom, is Steve Busalacchi. And Steve, thank you so much for being here.
My pleasure, Carly.
You've had quite a varied time around town here, and you've gotten to know a lot of people very well. Tell us a little bit about how the idea for this book came about.
Like you, I used to be a news reporter. I spent 15 years at Wisconsin Public Radio, and I used to be the medical reporter, so I interviewed doctors all the time. And they were great interviews. They always had these great stories. They're very smart. And I thought, it'd be neat to sort of get below the surface and find out, what motivated them? What have they seen in their travels? What's it like to be a transplant surgeon? That sort of thing. And then I read a book called Working, where a reporter basically interviewed people, and he just asked them what they did for a living, and they talked about being a plumber. And just the funniest stories and really interesting, and I thought doctors would be perfect for this. Tell us what it's like to be a doctor.
Doctors are, they have got incredible stories, especially many of them. I've come to learn over the years that they enter their fields because somehow they've been touched personally by wherever their, specialty is. Right? Did you find that?
That is sometimes the case. Sometimes there was a family member who was ill, and that got them interested. Sometimes they got a microscope as a kid, and they got really into insects and that sort of thing, and that sort of stimulated their imagination. All kinds of different reasons for why they went into it.
So the gist of this book are just different stories. You've got a lot of different physicians that you've spoken with and that are featured chapter by chapter. What are some of your favorite anecdotal stories to come out of this?
There are a million stories in this book, but you're asking me to pick one of my kids. Which ones do you love more? Thanks a lot, Carly.
Sorry.
But I'll pick one anyway. Dr. Munji Kalayalu, for instance. He's from Madison. He is now back in Turkey, but he's a transplant surgeon. And I thought his chapter was fascinating because he tells us in his own words, that's what this is, an oral history. So he tells us in his own words, and he has this Turkish accent, so it's really kind of fun to read, about what it was like in the early days of transplant surgery. And he talks about going to get that organ in another country on a jet and having to be up 60 hours straight because at that time the organ wouldn't last that long. Now they have this preservation fluid that gives them more time to gather the team. And it was just fascinating to hear what it was like to learn that craft and then to have somebody's life in your hands like that. You get that liver and you're going to live. You don't get that liver and you're going to die. And it's all on you. Okay.
A lot of stories like that. We are unfortunately out of time, but Steve, I know you have a book signing tonight. If people want to check it out, you're doing a lot of these. But tonight's at Borders on University Avenue, 7 o'clock. Get down there, check it out. It's a big book, but it's really broken down into great readable chunks. So, Steve, congratulations on your accomplishment there.
Thank you.
Folks,